So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about representation, both locally and nationally. And I'm first to say that NUS UK, which NUS Scotland is a part of, along with NUS Wales and NUS Northern Ireland, is a confederation of student unions and student associations, and about 600 in all, in further education, so colleges, in higher education, universities, and all sorts of different types of learning as well, so apprenticeships and work-based learning, and so on and so forth. And that adds up to about 7 million students across the UK, which is really quite a lot. So when I say that you guys are really necessary, I really mean it, because all the things that we do, we absolutely couldn't do without you guys on the ground, actually doing the hard work and the representational work on the ground. 7 million is a enormous number, and sort of the sort of few officers that sit in an office in London wouldn't be able to do the things or understand the things that are going on without you guys. And again, the wins that we see from NUS Scotland, which I'll come back to, which have just been amazing. I get very jealous as an officer in the UK of some of the things that the wins of NUS Scotland, because obviously your government is considerably nicer than the Westminster government. Yeah, people are like, so I get very jealous. But again, those things don't happen without you guys on the ground, working hard, working with the Students' Association and getting things done. So firstly, I just really wanted to say thank you. So in terms of representation locally, like I said, I do a lot of these sort of speeches and stuff at course rep conferences. And one of the things that I always talk about when I'm at course rep conferences or rep congresses or those sort of similar events is about sort of a consumer narrative. And obviously in England and in Wales, where people are paying for their education, the consumer narrative is really coming through very strongly. And it's really different in Scotland, obviously, because if you're a Scottish student or a European student, obviously your education is free, and that's not the case for everybody, and therefore that consumer argument sometimes exists. But overall, it's a really different sort of atmosphere to be coming into. And I noticed that actually the conversations that you were having with your principal were just very different to the sort of conversations that other students would have with their vice chancellors sort of outside of Scotland. So that was quite exciting. But I still think the sort of solution or the alternative to consumerism is partnership, and student unions and students working together in partnership with staff and staff trade unions and management and universities to create a better experience and a better education. And I still think that the word partnership can be explored and can be implemented better in Scottish institutions. I don't think that just because education is free in Scotland that it's perfect, and clearly it's not, because otherwise you guys wouldn't exist, because you're there to make the experience better in the first place. I just as a by way of a nod, how many people here, or did you run to be a course rep? Did you decide to become a rep because you felt disenfranchised with the experience we were having, or did you feel like actually I'm not happy with this and I don't quite know how I'll make a change on this, or it's a bit awkward because who do I go to say that I'm not happy with things being taught, how things are being taught, or there's not enough books in the library, or I don't like my space that I'm learning in. Did people experience that sort of thing? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. I was going to say, does anybody walk in and go, well, my experience is perfect? No? Yeah, right. So there we are. So I think that the issue of partnership is actually a problem for us all, no matter where you study and how much you pay or don't pay for your education. I think one of the problems that's come through, and I was quite sad to hear your principal talk about it, about this issue of satisfaction. So if you, the idea that you would measure your experience or how happy you were based on, satisfaction. I don't go to the cinema and come out and go, I was satisfied with that film. I would say I was happy with my experience at the cinema, right? Or anything, you have a good day, you don't have a satisfying day. I find it quite a weird, fairly soulless, experienceless word to use to describe it. And the problem with the current higher education university sector is that whether you're in England or Scotland, whether you're paying or not, that people are starting to sort of segment student experience into little tick boxes from the NSS, and this is what your experience becomes about. It becomes just about feedback and assessment. Are you satisfied with feedback and assessment? Well, I don't know about you, but when I was a student, it wasn't about whether I was satisfied with it. It was about whether I got out of the feedback and assessment what I needed, whether I learned, whether it gave me the information that I needed to progress and do better at my studies. And it wasn't really about being satisfied with my hours, my contact hours. It was about the quality of those hours and the inspiration that the teaching gave me in those hours. So I wouldn't leave those hours and go, I was satisfied with my lecture today. It was, I was inspired by my lecture today. I'm now going to go and actually do my work because, you know, this, rather than going to watch, you know, Jeremy Kyle or whatever, because actually this has inspired me. Does this ring true? Is this what you guys are feeling? Yeah? Is anyone leaving going, I was satisfied with my lecture? No, no, it's a weird word. And I think that actually partnership can change that attitude to things. So it won't be about satisfaction anymore. Partnership will be about whether you're happy. And the reason that you can't measure, the reason I don't think we don't talk about happiness is it's quite hard to measure. You can't really put that in a league table or you can't put it in put it in stats and measure yourself against somebody else, because happiness isn't objective like that. But actually what's so key is that you guys do an incredible job at talking about happiness, because you guys aren't there to put tick boxes and say whether you like something. You're there to talk about, you know, like something objectively, and it fits into a box and you're satisfied with it. Actually, you're talking about happiness. You're talking about students who are happy with their experience. They've been inspired to learn. Today I was in a morning session with you guys, and someone talked about a teacher that changed their life. I won't say who it was, I won't embarrass them, but that is what education's about. It's about moments that change your life. And you guys are very lucky because you have 4 years. If you're an undergrad, you have 4 years of that. I only had 3 years of that, so I went and did postgrad. But you have 4 years of, you know, possible teaching time that changes your life. And so what I'll say about partnership is that what's really key, and what the job that you can do to change the experience on campus, is not just say I am happy or not happy with this, I like or I dislike this, but you can be part of the process of creating what it looks like in the first place. So you can say to your lecturers and you can say to your course leaders and your faculty, you know what, this is what students want to learn and this is how they want to learn it. How do you want to teach us? What do you want to teach us? And why are you doing it like that? And let's get together and work out, is that the best way for people on this course? Is that the best way for people in this faculty? And what's magical about that is that it will look totally different across the whole university. But that's right, because how you learn engineering is very different to how you learn law, to how you learn history, to something else. And so partnership, when you're working together with staff and you're working together with the Students' Association and other students on your course, coming together and creating what university looks like in the first place, not merely saying yes or no, but actually creating what that experience is like in the first place, is really powerful. And it's just something that I want you to take away today. And I think that's the role that you have is really powerful. So that sort of representation locally and that power to create things locally. I also think that you have that power to represent and create things nationally. And like I said, so we're talking about students as actors for change locally, changing things locally, creating things locally. And actually, if you look at the work that NUS Scotland has done together with student associations in Scotland and with you guys, free education, funding for colleges, proper funding for students now so they can actually afford to go to university, so that they're able to afford to stay in, to buy the things that they need. This has happened because students have been actors for change, and you've used your power and used your voice and your actions to create that. I don't know if you know, but I know that Strathclyde's doing loads of work, Strathclyde Student Association is doing loads of work for it, but there's a national demonstration coming up that NUS has called on the 21st of November. And this demonstration is about it's about changing things. And one of the things I'm really keen to push about that is that it's not about the things that we dislike. So I absolutely dislike the fact that international students came here believing that they could have a post-study work visa when they finish studying, and they can't, and the injustice of that being taken away midway through their study is actually really terrible. And I dislike the injustice of students in England, college students in England, again starting their A-levels or their level 3 or equivalent qualifications and having their EMA taken away from them halfway through. I dislike those things, and these are the things that people will be marching against and saying that they dislike. But again, the power of the student movement is to talk about the things that you do like, and the things that you value, and the things that you want to create. And I think what's so powerful about the relationship that NUS Scotland has with NUS UK is that you guys give us often something to believe in and the values to fight for. So because your education is free, this consumer narrative hasn't woven in the same way it has in England. And because NUSUK has won proper funding for students. We believe that we can do the same, and I think what's really powerful is on the 21st of November, I hope we can come together and fight, march and voice our, make our voices heard for things that we do believe in. And that, those sort of things, and thinking bigger than we have previously. So it's bigger than just free education or proper funding and those sort of things. But belief that actually it doesn't matter what you study or where you study it, education is the most important thing. So there's always that really weird, really odd, like elitism argument, right? So people are like, well, if you go to this university, you're better than if you go to this university, or if you do A levels, you're better than if you did a BTEC, or so on and so forth, which I find really odd. I live with a plumber, and I did a master's, and he went and did his plumbing qualifications, and both of us got the same out of our education experience. Both of us became critical and independent and confident off the back of that. But people would look down their nose at him saying, what have you done? You've just done a vocational qualification. And the point is that it doesn't, some of the most academic and elite, in inverted commas, courses are also vocational. So take dentistry or engineering, right? These things are really academic, but they're also very hands-on. You're learning towards a job, or you're learning towards doing something. And I think it's our role as a student movement to break down the barriers between some of these this snobbery around education, and saying it doesn't matter what you learn, or how you learn it, or where you learn it. It's about being given the real choice to learn what you want, where you want, with the proper funding to do it, so that you have a good place in the world, so that you're confident and independent, so that you have the right, you can choose your future. You're not stuck in the same place that you were born because you haven't been given the opportunities to get out. And I think these are the things that we should be fighting for, as opposed to fighting against things that we dislike. And you have such a key role in that, because again, I can go and have a meeting in Parliament, but no one's listening. But when 50,000 people turn up outside Parliament, it generally changes things. So yeah, that's. I just had a few words to say, and I think we've got about 10-15 minutes for questions. If anyone has any questions.
You have 5 minutes for questions.
5 minutes. Malcolm's going to ask me a really hard question.
What will NUSUK be doing to support Scottish students going down to Demo 2012?
I think it's. What do you mean by support?
Any forms of support, whether it's through publicity, or financial, or...
So there was a fund that went out, applications for funds that went out for particularly for SB colleges. So there's some funding there. So that's happened. So that was there. But also, I think it's really important that basically we're just celebrating where there are Scottish institutions that are supporting the national demo. We're absolutely celebrating them and their hard work. At the end of the day, I mean, I was a student in Leeds in 2010 and sat on a bus for 4.5, 5 hours. You guys have got to sit on a bus for 10 hours. And that's for longer than you know. No, it's not. What did you say? It's not fun, but I bet you have good memories of it. So it's about celebrating you guys for doing that, and also recognising that actually when Scotland has fights, that we also offer the same solidarity that Scotland has offered with the rest of the UK. I think that's massively important. I think it's something that we forget. But like I said, most of the time we spend looking at NUS Scotland and just feeling really jealous of the fact that you've managed to make so many incredible wins for students on the ground. So yeah.
How important would you say it is that Scottish students do come down to Demo 2012?
I do think it's really important. I think that it can be hard, because often if you're in a situation where you feel like you're achieving and that you're making the wins for students, it sometimes feels like you don't need to be there. Like I said, the narrative around consumerism hasn't crept in here, but the stuff around satisfaction is, and I think that you have a really positive role in pushing that back. But also the stuff that we can win nationally together. So post-study work visas is a clear example actually where it doesn't matter that there's separate policy on some issues. This policy is UK-wide, and it's not changing unless we get together and really sort of resist. Basically, it's quite frightening the impact that it's having. We did our own research on international students when these changes came in, and 46% of international students said that they wouldn't recommend the UK to a friend, and I think that's really frightening. And this is also all caught up in things like hate crime that are coming out with the way people are treating international students, and this is, I mean, it's disgusting and it's very frightening. And so actually this is one clear issue where we can get together and say this is not appropriate. And again, of course, you have English students going to Scottish institutions and you have Scottish students going to English institutions, and it's important, therefore, that we campaign together. I think that's hugely important. I was going to say someone else apart from Malcolm. Yeah.
Having been to the last demonstration, I was just interested to know what NUSUK are doing to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen again and students end up in the wrong image.
Yeah.
Because I felt terrible coming back from that last one with everything that happened.
Yeah.
A lot of people were saying, you did this, obviously.
Yeah. So we did some research after it, actually, we did some branding research that showed that people didn't link the what happened at Millbank with NUS UK. So I think that's important to say. I think people could recognise it separate in the same way that I think that people didn't link sort of some of the stuff, the TUC demo in 2011 with the TUC. So I think people can see the difference. What we are doing, we've got an external risk assessment company that we come in and use. We've sort of changed our stewarding slightly. We're working with the police, which you have to when you're doing a demonstration, but working with the police and having the route out, the route and the information's gone out already so that people can do that sort of stuff. And as Malcolm and his team will know that they have just been bombarded by email every week, emails after emails after emails with all that sort of information. The one thing I will say about this is that you can't stop protesting or campaigning because of the actions of a few. And I think what's massive, and one of the frightening things that came out from the last demo actually is about defending the right to protest and the police tactics. Again, it wasn't just the actions of some of the people in the demonstration, but actually the police tactics were bang out of order and quite dangerous. And it's about turning around and saying, this is not acceptable. We're here. We will march, and we will march peacefully, and we'll do it meaningfully. And nobody can take away our right to do that. Yes.
Not that I want to keep going on about the demo, but I was at a training course during the summer, and one of it was that we had to come up with a 30-second pitch. Yeah, I'm doing it. A 30-second pitch to give to a student. If you had to do a 30-second pitch, what would it be for a Strathclyde student?
So cheeky. That was to get you to do the 30-second pitch.
Your time starts now.
If you are unhappy with the changes that are happening in education, whether they be in England or in Scotland, Northern Ireland or in Wales, if you're unhappy with the way that it's going, if you think that students should be properly funded, if you think there should be parity of esteem between vocational and academic, between HE and FE, then you should come to the national demonstration on the 21st of November and show the government, both the Scottish Government and the Westminster Government, what we believe in, the values that we hold dear and the things that we want to fight for. Go on, Malcolm. Yeah. Is there any other questions? Anything about? It doesn't have to be a demo.
Free buses as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for a first-time demonstrator at all? Any quick tips?
Take a jumper. Take comfy shoes. Like, it's really tempting to dress up and be in your demo attire. Don't do that. Wear tights under your jeans and take a rucksack with a waterproof coat and comfy shoes. And I always wear 2 pairs of socks. And I always carry Baby Bell because they last all day. And then you end up eating 6 Baby Bell. But yeah, taking food and some water and stuff. And just going there, it feels like a carnival, it feels like a celebration, and that's what it should be. We should be celebrating the things that we are fighting for rather than being angry at the things against. And just having a good old shout. So it's really good to let off some energy. Yeah.
Just going on Malcolm's saying, is there free buses? How are we going to get the transport?
That is for, Malcolm, do you want to tell?
Yes, so Strathclyde are putting on transport. You will be getting a release. Hopefully you'll all read my emails that I sent out. Hopefully. There will be one coming out shortly that will describe what we're doing. You can sign up to the buses. It's £5 deposit to book your seat, but you will get that back, and it's pre-bus down to the demo, which leaves, I'm trying to remember, I think it's around here. No, 11 o'clock I think it leaves on the Tuesday, so it travels overnight, so you can get a wee kit on the bus, and you can sign up from the Students website, and I would encourage all of you to do so, because we really need to show that the entire UK are together on the fight for education across the country. Not just, if you don't think that it's relevant to Scotland, you're wrong, because education is affected, and we are part of NUS, and we should support institutions across the UK. 29 seconds.
I think mine was 27, so amazing. Are there any other questions? Could be, yeah.
Well, we're not going to talk about that. We're trying to change the tact. Have you thought about different methods of trying to encourage change rather than just by essentially a mass march?
Yeah, and this I think is our challenge next year. I think we have to work out some sort of coordinated action that isn't a march or a demo actually. I think probably the year after we'll probably end up doing something similar again, because it'll be an election year. But yeah, I think that's the challenge. And my challenge actually back to student unions and student associations this time around is the demo is fantastic. That's sort of the way that we're sort of rousing some action. But actually, what really matters is what you do when you get back onto your campus to change things. Because one of the most, we're not in an election cycle, and there's no policy coming forward, so we can't stop. It's not like last time where there was a tuition fee vote and we could stop it. One of the key things about marching for something that you're in favour of as opposed to something that you're against is when you get back onto your local campus, it's hugely important that you act to change the things that you're not happy with. So somebody brought up actually, you talked about hidden course costs, and that is actually a big issue. Student retention is as much as an issue, if not more, in Scotland as it is in the rest of the UK. And what are we doing to ensure that students are supported? And not just that the Students' Association is supporting them, that their institution, that their university is supporting them to stay at university, by not springing hidden course costs on them, making sure that accommodation, making sure they've got friends and networks and so on and so forth. So it's and access again. I know that it sounds like the principal's doing lots of really good work on access, but how does Strathclyde behave in the community? What does it do to change the lives and transform the lives of students and young people in the community in Glasgow? And that's a challenge that we're giving to a lot of institutions, because they seem to have forgotten that. They seem to have forgotten how important that is. So the most important thing at the moment, actually, I think, is when you come back, what are you doing to change things in Strathclyde University and in Glasgow and the city, and thinking about those local campaigns that really can make a difference to people locally. Because if everybody does that and everybody wins on those, we'd have a whole sort of UK-wide win in terms of the national demo. But yeah, that's the challenge now. We've got to find something big that we can all do together, but we can do it sort of locally. Yeah. Any other questions? Really?
Yeah.
Go on.
You in this term discussed a lot tertiary education.
Yeah.
Could you explain that a bit?
Yeah. So we've started again as part of not talking about things that we don't like, but actually talking about things that we do like. We started talking about tertiary education, and tertiary is basically post-16 non-compulsory education. So we're talking basically after GCSEs or equivalent onwards. And what's quite special about that is in most other countries you have a fair, and actually in Scotland you do it very well. The way that FE and HE works together is quite fluid. You've kind of got coherent policy amongst the two. In the rest of the UK it's just not like that at all. So it's about breaking down those barriers. It's about breaking down the barriers between academic and vocational, like I was saying before, breaking down those barriers. About breaking down the barriers between local and global, and the fact that you're all global institutions, but you have local responsibilities as well. And creating a tertiary education system that helps people become what they want to be, that allows people to learn through their entire life and not just at a certain age, that moves away from the idea of you've got to be 18 to go to university and you can only go from a certain background, that everybody has access to the education that's right for them, when it's right for them, that it's free and accessible, and that they it's something they can enjoy and really sort of be proud of. Not education that just is a piece of paper that you can give to your employer, but education that changes you and makes you a better person. So that's the tertiary education value that we're working on at the moment. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.